progress, I'd say, yes. Well, there's all kinds of precious things on the seabed of the English Channel, nestled amongst rubbish from ferries and fishing boats.
But very occasionally, the Channel reveals a valuable secret it's been keeping to itself for hundreds of years.
Dan Snow took a dive back to the 17th century.
The English Channel, for hundreds of years one of the world's busiest shipping lanes, and one of the most dangerous. Below these waters lie the shattered remains of thousands of ships which never made it home, victims of either war or weather, and ships lost out here can be lost forever.
On the seabed, vicious currents tear the wreck apart, and sea animals and salt water destroy its timbers. But every so often, the elements conspire to protect a wreck by covering it in sand. And if you're lucky enough to find one of these, then you get to peer straight into our past.
That's what happened 5 years ago. A dredger like this one, clearing silt from the channel bed, uncovered the wreck of a ship preserved for hundreds of years by thousands of tons of sand.
Nobody knew where the ship was from or what it was called, but now that it was uncovered, the sea would soon destroy it. So historians found themselves in a race to solve the riddle of the wreck in the sands.
Leading the race is this team of marine archaeologists from Bournemouth University.
So why is it such a race against time? What's happening to that wreck?
It's disintegrating now. It's been exposed for at least 5 years. There's lots of shipworm attacking it. The surface of the timbers have gone by over 10 million places. So it's gradually, or not too gradually now, disappearing.
And what am I going to see today?
We're hopefully going to take you to the carving, which is on the bow structure. Hopefully we'll take you to the rudder as well, which has got the most beautiful carving on it.
The team is already fighting both time and the elements. To make sure they don't have to race against souvenir hunters as well, we're not revealing the exact position of the wreck.
This is a restricted location. It's also a very tricky place to work because the tides are very strong and you've only got about 90 minutes to do excavations. If you're down there and the tide changes, you can get swept miles out to sea.
I never know what to expect when you're diving in the channel. Some days good visibility, other days you can't see the hand in front of your face. Fingers crossed, we'll see some of this wreck today. It's easy to see why the archaeologists are so excited about this find. Left to the elements, these timbers would have disintegrated in a matter of months. But like the Mary Rose, they've been perfectly preserved by the silt. The ornate carvings are in the same condition as when she last took to the sea at the time when Charles I was on the throne.
With only a few minutes to go before the tide turns and sweeps us out to sea, we need to end the dive. I love wreck diving. It's incredible. Over 300 years, and it's still recognised to be a ship. The planks, the cannon, the rudder with the carvings. That's extraordinary. It's like a toy that's been smashed by a child and just left scattered all over the bottom of the channel. Incredible. I didn't find any gold though. Very annoying.
Dave's team have made over 100 dives this year, but are still some way from identifying the ship.
Now, there's no record at all of a wreck occurring in this period near Poole. So there's nothing locally. All we're left with is the archaeological material on the seabed to try and give us some sort of picture of what's there and what it's doing there. We've got one of the frames from the ship tree ring dated, and that's given us a felling date for the tree of the spring of 1628.
The rudder that I saw was massive. I mean, do we have any idea about the overall size of the ship?
You've got an 8.5 metre long rudder, which would suggest that you've got a vessel of 400 or 500 tonnes. We've got a ship here engaged in the very beginnings of international trade between Southeast Asia, or the Americas and Northwest Europe.
Alison, you brought some of your favourite pieces of the archaeology. What have we got here? What's it tell us?
Oh, we've got all different things. We've got things like this galley brick, which shows you about sort of the galley area on board. And then you've got things through to the musket shots. So all different sort of aspects of life on board the ship are represented in the things that we find.
When the work here is complete, it's hoped that everything that is salvaged from the seabed will be put on public display in Poole Museum. The finds will be an extraordinary addition to our heritage.
That wreck is such a wonderful time capsule, telling us so much about life nearly 400 years ago. What's so exciting was with every dive we get another piece of that puzzle, and it allows us to put together a vision of what it must have been like all those years ago.
Fascinating stuff. Well, with us now is marine archaeologist Dave Parham, who's in charge of that dive site there. Now, just before we have a look at all of this wonderful stuff here, Dan joked that, you know, he didn't find gold on that particular dive, but there is a treasure trove out there, isn't there? A wreck full of gold and silver in the English Channel?
There are treasure wrecks in the English Channel, and there are people actively looking for them now, but that's not what we do. We're after information about the past rather than gold and glory. So our treasure really is this kind of material and what it tells us about what was happening in the world 400 years ago.
OK. And since Dan was out with you on the boat, you've recovered loads more stuff, haven't you? All these artefacts here. So what do they tell us about history then?
Well, we've recovered about 1,000 finds since Dan was there, and we've got a few things like these shoes here. They're quite nice because they're actually somebody's personal possessions. We found them in stores, so they're packed into people's chests and they're still surrounded by straw when they're found. But you've actually got a connection then with somebody, the shoes they wore, personally made for them. So, you know, it's a nice touch to the past, really.
Wow. Yeah, and they're in good nick as well, aren't they?
They're in exceptionally good nick, aren't they? Yeah. We've got about 15 of them, and they're still, after 380 years underwater, they're still, well, not quite wearable, but presentable.
And what about this base that you've got here, which you're keeping wet, because obviously with the studio lights...
That's right, the studio lights all dried out, so we've been trying to keep it wet. It's a small gargoyle, and it's from the outside of the hull of the ship. It's surrounding a gun port. If you look on the far side of it, there's a curve that you can see there.
Yeah.
No, on the carving.
Here,
It's curved, and that's surrounded the gun port. So if you imagine that as a window frame around the gun port that the cannon came, that's decoration on the ship showing status. That's what a decorated gun port,
There it is. Yeah. OK, and what about what we've got here, Dave?
What we've got over there, we've got some of the munitions of the ship. We've got a canister, which is the wooden vessel there. It's a wooden tube, and that's packed full of musket balls and pushed down the end of a cannon that's then fired. We've got the musket balls on the left there. So it's an anti-personnel weapon. It's designed for firing into packed groups of men on board a ship. So if you're attacked and you've got lots of the enemy on your deck, you can fire that at them, and it's a very good way, rather horribly, of clearing a deck of anything living.
Yeah, incredible. And what are you going to do with all this stuff, then?
All that's going to be conserved. It'll end up on display in Poole Museum.
And
perhaps in 4 or 5 years' time.
Do you hope to find some more stuff? Will you go back and dive again?
We're diving this weekend, actually. We shouldn't find anything else now, but what we're hoping to do is recover about 20 tonnes of the hull that's actually endangered at the moment.
Brilliant. Well, that's incredible. Thanks so much for bringing all of this in and keeping it wet.
Thank you, Dave. And thanks, Alan, so much for coming in. Martina Cole's The Runaway is back at 9 p.m. tomorrow on Sky One.
Yeah, tomorrow we're going to be joined by Omid Jalili. Have a great night. See you later. Brilliant.